Good evening, I'm Rhonda Wardlaw with City TV, and we are at one of the many legislative receptions taking place throughout Annapolis as numerous legislators are being welcomed for the 428th session of the General Assembly. Now, the General Assembly meets every year for 90 days and will take on at least 2,300 bills, including one of the most important issues, that, of course, the annual state budget. The session began on January 12th and will adjourn on April 11th. The General Assembly has 47 senators and 141 delegates elected from 47 districts. However, tonight we will be focusing on the Annapolis delegation as well as members of the Annapolis City Council. The reason? Everyone is being told to do more with less. We want to talk to this group of people about their legislative agendas and exactly how they plan to help Annapolis taxpayers get through these tough economic times.
As everyone knows, we just don't have the resources. The tax revenues are down, the expenses are up. We got some real serious problems. The state's looking at about $1.5 billion shortfall that we're going to have to work with. So it's going to require some very, very hard decisions. There's some people that want to see an increase in some revenue streams. So you're going to see some activity in that regard. So some people want to add a tax on alcohol. Others want to put a tax on gasoline. So we're going to have some really emotional and difficult issues to deal with in this coming session.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of that's going to be done on the backs of cities. We lost about $1.5 million in highway user funds last year. We'll probably lose that much again this year. So how we fill that hole is going to be very difficult. And the state is going to be looking for every dollar. And I don't think that's going to leave much for us. And we're going to be scrambling to try to get some money for needed operations in the city.
Well, the number one need in my ward is to repair the sidewalks. They're really very bad. They've been neglected for a long period of time. We also are concerned about these legislation regarding the maritime zones, particularly the faucets, and how that will impact, because we in Ward 7 have a huge amount of waterfront and maritime zones, and what happens down at the city dock is going to escalate down to happen to us too. So I think people are quite concerned about that.
We have a couple of projects, the Annapolis Elementary School, 3 other schools in the county that I would think that this legislature is going to be pro-education and not hurt the chances of those 3 schools getting the necessary repairs.
Annapolis is hurting right now. So one of the ways we can try to work it is, I think, through the bond bills and the grants, and target the areas that are needed to try to get the money a little more directly to where it needs to go, rather than an overall cut to the city.
Grant money is always a necessary option for us because there just isn't enough tax dollars. So absolutely, and other opportunities for grants that we learn about, we welcome them.
We don't just want to chase the money, but we want to match up grant opportunities with what our priorities already are. And we need to be careful about getting grants for something for free, but then create this obligation financially in out years.
We need some special considerations for things like the market house, the repair to the dam on the old reservoir, things like that. So I know the mayor is going to be spending some time asking for some kind of relief on those issues.
Well, I think we're going to have to look at the services that we provide and decide whether or not we're going to continue to provide as many services as we do. We have to think about combining services perhaps with other jurisdictions in order to save money. That's the name of the game.
But as the state capital, we're hoping that our state legislators from around the state will recognize the value of the city of Annapolis and give us as much assistance as we can to maintain a safe, orderly, and a positive environment for all of our residents.
For your particular constituents, for your ward, talk to me about anything you might be pushing that's separate from the city.
Well, in the past we worked with the Safe Streets Zone, for example, which reduced crime by 40%. So we're hoping that the state will recognize the value in that type of a program and want to continue to fund it.
I mean, I started with a drug-free zones bill. We folded that into the Safe Streets program, and it certainly does help the city of Annapolis. We see crime dropping and things of that sort. That's an area, for instance, that grant money, and we do have some set aside for crime fighting in 2 municipalities that we can target for that area.
We lost about $2 million in cuts from the state in the current fiscal year budget. highway user revenue was cut about $1.5 million, state aid for police protection. So I know overall the Maryland Municipal League is really focusing on highway user revenue as their top priority. Does the state have any money to replenish it? I don't know. I mean, the good news for Annapolis is that we already balanced our budget based on the existing funding level. So to the extent that the state is able to increase highway user revenues to the localities, that will only help make the upcoming budget easier.
Well, I hope that if we get the Market House that we can get, because that's such an iconic place, that we can get the state to help us out with that, because that's important not only to Annapolis, it's important to our economy, but Anne Arundel's economy. I mean, we're a leading tourist attraction, and right now, if that's fixed up, that's going to help us.
Well, we know what's happening on Main Street in Annapolis, and I'm well aware of that. We know what's been going on with the Market House. I think we need to create some incentives for small business. Many of the bills that have gone out there, and they think they're targeting corporations, or they think they're targeting LLCs. And what they're really doing is they're targeting local businesses. Mom and pop businesses along Main Street were all corporations, S corps and C corps, and it ended up affecting them greatly, and it hurts the bottom line. We need to create incentives. That helps to create jobs. That helps to bring more revenue to the state.
And I think the legislation that was passed last year, which enables us to have permanent, dedicated tourism marketing funding moving forward, is exactly what we needed to put in place. Now, working with Mayor Cohen and also the delegation, we're going to be implementing programs with that new funding that will really put us on the map.
And while we knew it wasn't going to be possible to have every single one of the legislators at all of the legislative receptions, we did hope to have a chance to sit down with House Speaker Michael Bush and talk more about this session, and we're lucky enough to do that at the State House today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Rhonda. It's a pleasure to be with you.
You know, we understand there's going to be some 2,300 pieces of legislation that go back and forth through the next 90 days, but my understanding through talking with a number of our local delegation members is it's the budget that we have to really just key in on and start with that. Talk about that.
Yeah, the budget becomes the key issue. That's the one document that you have to pass every year. You have to have a balanced budget by law. And under the law, you also have to fund an equitable education for every child. So there are the two challenges that we face under the budget. Obviously, there's a lot of federal mandates that you have to meet, particularly in Medicaid funding. So the governor has stated that he's going to bring his budget in with a $1.6 billion shortfall, that he will make the appropriate cuts within the budget to get to the place where we have a balanced budget without any revenue increases. So the governor's going to start the budget process by bringing in the budget, like I say, with the appropriate cuts to reflect $1.6 billion in the shortfall, and then he will also not initiate any revenues.
As a delegate for Annapolis, talk to me about how you do more with less with that type of a deficit starting off.
Well, it becomes a challenge because first and foremost, of the $13.2 billion that actually come into your general fund, and when we passed revenues in 2007, the projection was we'd have about $17 billion in our general fund. And the general fund is made up of your income tax, your sales tax, your corporate taxes, and your lottery revenues. So for the governor to balance the budget and still continue to fund education, and we funded education at $5.7 billion last year, which goes directly through to the counties and the city of Baltimore. $1.4 billion goes to higher ed, which funds your university system, your community colleges, and your private universities. $3.3 billion goes into a Medicaid match, and that becomes the most challenging because the federal government requires if somebody qualifies for Medicaid, states have to match the Medicaid eligibility. So in tough recessionary times, we'll have 250,000 more people that are eligible for Medicaid. And people don't realize that the vast majority of your Medicaid funding goes to senior citizens that are in nursing homes. About 80 to 90% of the people in nursing homes are Medicaid reimbursed. And then your developmentally disabled, mentally disabled take up a lot of your Medicaid dollars. You have about 1.2 to 1.4 billion in public safety, which is your police, your fire, emergency medical services, and all your correction institutions. Only 4% of the state budget actually goes for government, for those employees within the agencies, because most of the agencies, a lot of them are covered by the fee structure, like MDE, DNR, Motor Vehicle Administration, totally covered by fees. as well as DLLR, Department of Licensing and Regulation. So there's a huge challenge, and the governor will probably also transfer the highway user money that usually goes back to local government into the general fund budget to balance the budget as well, which means that cities like Annapolis will not get its fair share of the revenues for highway user money, which goes to their projects in the city.
On your screen, you'll find information on how to contact your local legislator, city council member, and mayor. Please take advantage of this as the legislative process continues.